me a story. Something we've all said or heard in our lives. Stories bring us together around the campfire. Storytelling has earned its place as the most important tradition humans possess. The most important reason for this being that every story contains a lesson. Lessons to love, to forgive, to be just, and to strive for better than we have. They empower us, they lead us, they comfort us. Born in Alberta, raised in the backcountry, fishing, hunting, nature, the wild, all run thick in my blood. Growing up a Canadian boy, I had a similar dream to most other boys my age here, to make the NHL. When that dream was yanked from beneath my feet, how could I carry on? My story is full of hope, inspiration, joy, heartbreak, heartache, and resiliency. My name is Dana Lattery. I'm a fly fishing guide in southern Alberta, an ex-professional hockey player, and a storyteller at heart. Having spent the past decade guiding thousands of fly fishermen from all over the world, I've heard so many stories that paralleled mine. Stories of pain, brokenness, tragedy, from all different walks of life. The more time I spend with them, the more I realized that we all shared one common thread. Fly fishing saved our lives. Grab your favorite drink and join me on this journey as our story begins. Welcome back to another episode of Fly Fishing Saves Lives, and today I'm joined by a fellow guide and a very good friend, Quinn Styles. Quinn?
Hello,
welcome.
Dana. How are you, brother?
You brought your A game and your B voice.
I did.
So, Quinn,
Yeah.
fly fishing has been pretty much your whole life, a big part of your life.
You know, it, like when people say that fly fishing has been a big part, it was a natural sort of evolution, right? My grandfather, more so than my father, got me into fishing, and I don't know if there's a genetic predisposition to it, and I know that sounds sort of hokey, but my parents have shown me pictures of me as a 2-year-old holding fish, just being fascinated by them. My grandparents had a place on the lake in Vernon on the Okanagan, and my grandfather was he fished all the time, mostly a bait fisherman, but it was more for meat, right? That generation grew up in a different sort of time, and he like a lot of older guys, could never comprehend catch and release.
They still don't.
Right. Yeah. Right. And so he had a creel, and he used to have these sponges that he used to keep wet to put on top of the fish once he dispatched them. And when he'd come back to the pier at the end of the day fishing, he'd always give me a kokanee or something, and I'd play with that all day like a toy.
The fish, not the beer.
Right. Yeah. The kokanee. And so I play and I would swim with it in the water. I can remember that as a kid, putting on a snorkeling mask and playing with dead fish. and my parents would have to pry these things out of my hands. And when I got a little older, by that I mean 5 or whatever, they put a life jacket on me, and I'd go to the end of the pier and I'd fish for squawfish and perch all day, literally all day. They'd have to pull me off that. And when I got a little older, I used to put garbage pails, big cans, fill them up with water, and I'd keep live fish that I caught, right? And then whatever. Then it just gradually progressed with an interest to do something, to challenge yourself, right? So I don't know what age it was, I'm going to say, around, I don't know, who knows, right? 8 or 9. And I started fly fishing as well as spin fishing and bait fishing. And depending, like my grandfather would say, we'd have a better chance of catching fish today if we were, whatever. And that's how it sort of progressed. But yeah, so I've been fishing with a fly rod for quite some time. But I also, I still enjoy trolling mountain lakes with willow leaves and worms too. So it's. Yeah.
So, kind of explain to everybody who is Quinn. Where is Quinn from? What does Quinn do? Just kind of get a little backstory.
So, my name's Quinn. I, in terms of what I do, well, a bunch of things really, but I guess what you're just trying to reach at is, I've been a fishing guide since the early '90s, and here on the Bow River, I've worked for numerous outfitters and fly shops. And then 3 years ago, started, Trout Farmer. I don't know what else to say. I mean, I'm also a firefighter for the city of Calgary. Prior to that, I did some industrial firefighting in Red Deer. And before that, I worked, on a purebred Angus farm with a buddy of mine, and a lot of carpentry work in between then, and some sailing, and just general farting around.
It kind of seems like that's what we do now.
Well, yeah. It's I've never been an office type, right? As much as there was some pressure when I was a kid to be an office type, but it just never wasn't. I took an alternate route. You know what I mean?
Which seems to be the path or the route of a lot of guides, where the end game isn't to be rich or wealthy. It's
no, I don't think you can help yourself. Like I went to university, I got a degree, I finished university, and I've got a fairly broad-based education behind me, but I still couldn't bring myself to work
in a cubicle.
I couldn't do it. It didn't even pass through my head. And so I did things that I found interesting. That was always the case, right?
And so, you live just south of Calgary. You grew up in Calgary?
Yep, grew up born and raised in Calgary. Born and raised in Calgary. I fished the Bow River. I remember, was it ever different back then? Like my parents didn't know what to do. I was fairly hyperactive as a kid. I would get on my bike, and after working at Canadian Tire or whatever, and spend the better part of my mornings and afternoons down on what we call the city stretch now, fly fishing. Yeah.
So what got you into firefighting and guiding? Like, I understand like the schedule is pretty awesome for that.
Well, yeah, it was. I soon realized, and I say, like, I started to get serious with regards to shouldering a little bit more responsibility when I was about 27, and I realized the path that I'm on, at 25, 26, is not sustainable in terms of being independent of to stand on my own 2 feet, right? And as much as guiding was a lot of fun, it wasn't conducive to me, eventually owning a house, or it just I couldn't live on what I was making, and so I had to find something that challenged me, and would provide me with the other things we need in life, right? Because I had different goals. I didn't want to just be a trout bum in the back of a Toyota truck. You know what I mean? I wanted to have a wife. I wanted to have kids. I wanted to be able to travel. I wanted to be able to, have a dental program and stuff, you know what I mean? Like benefits and stuff like that. So at 27, I thought, you know what, I got to find a job that works within the framework, in that I didn't want to work for 50 weeks a year only to get 2 weeks off. So I wanted to have something that gave me some flexibility and that was still at the same time dynamic and challenging, and allowed me, I like to be around people. I certainly like to help people. I'm fairly, I don't know. I don't want to use the word masculine, but I've got some traditional, like masculine romantic ideals, right, of what I like to do. And firefighting sort of fit the bill.
Like, how many calendars have you been in?
I haven't been in any. No. I haven't been in. Yeah.
Maybe I have romantic masculine.
No, but you know what I mean? Like from a traditional sense, right? Where, I always looked up to cowboys or, men that did quote unquote traditional masculine type.
Yeah.
I wasn't, I've got a highly developed feminine side. Don't get me wrong. But, I was more driven
towards by that.
Well, a little bit, right? Yeah. I'm good at it. I'm good at I'm good at that kind of stuff. So, the first time I applied for the fire department, I was still guiding in Fernie on the Elk, and back then they let you know if you passed the certain stages by putting your name in the classifieds in the papers, in the Herald and the Sun. And I was crushed because the first time I applied, I didn't make it past the phase. And in hindsight, that was probably the best thing that happened, because I really, bared down, did a deep dive into my weaknesses and really worked hard at bolstering those things up, so that the second time I applied,
What do you think? What do you think was the difference between the first and the second time? Like, what did you change, or just you went back to guiding some more?
I was, I never stopped guiding. Well, that's not true. When I was at the academy with the fire department, I couldn't, because it was during the summertime. But I never stopped guiding. The guiding was always the guiding was always a constant, a financial constant, and B, it was always something that I just had to do. It's weird how that happens, but it's something
we'll
I
explore that the need to guide. So you're 27, 28, 29, you joined the fire department?
20. I got on when I was 29. Yeah.
So married, single?
Married to, everybody says this, but she's absolutely, I'm absolutely punching above my weight. She's fantastic. And I got two absolutely great kids.
And Jack is your youngest boy.
Jack is my youngest boy, and
kind of a Jedi.
He's that's my both my kids are my most. That's what I'm most proud about. That's my most important job, and the job that I relish and love. That's also the hardest job is being a father. That's profound, for me.
So, having said that,
Mm-hmm.
A firefighter schedule is tough. The job is tough.
Right.
A guiding schedule is seasonal, but when the season is on, it's extremely tough, to use the same word.
I would say it's taxing, and it's exhaustive. I wouldn't say it's hard. Do you know what I mean? Like for me, a hard job would be doing something. Intrinsically, it would have to be hard physically, but it would also have to be something you don't like to do, right? So I wouldn't say that once I got on the fire department, I never thought I got to go to work today. That sucks. I loved it. Still love it, right? It doesn't feel like a job. And people say, well, it's really hard. There's portions of it that are are scary for sure, and deeply sad, and you get to see the best of people and the worst of people in these terrible situations, physical situations and emotional situations, but it's extremely rewarding, right?
So being a firefighter is probably one of the most stressful jobs. Like what is the expectancy for somebody doing that job as far as like career goes in years?
Like you have to retire at 60, right? But in terms of is it? No, I mean, there's the guys. You have to pull them out of the fire halls at 60. They want to stay for a long time. Like it's highly stressful. I don't know. If and you and I have both talked to like special forces guys and we've had them in our boats and or guys that are highly trained in a certain area. It's not stressful. It's fun. You know what I mean? Like in a weird way, because you're being challenged, but you're also highly trained, and so you're in that environment where you feel, incredibly confident and good because you know what I mean. So
you're fulfilling your purpose, and that's extremely satisfying.
Right, like it's not. A layman would think going into a house fire is that'd be really tough. It's really exciting. It's you feel the most alive when you're up against a situation whereby right? And it's hard to sort of for people that haven't experienced that to sort of understand, but it's very much it's an intrinsic part to the job. There's numerous times where it's life changing when you think, gee, this is it, right?
And then you talk about your family at home and stuff, and it's like that stuff's got to just pile on you in those moments where you're not now just living for
right. It's interesting to see the scope of the change, like from when I first started, when I was I didn't have kids, to having young kids, and then going to a call. Let's say there's SIDS death or a child that's choking, and it hits you at a way deeper level than if you didn't have kids, for instance, right? So the scope of your experience changes in terms of the intensity also of when you're 27 or 28, 29, well, in this case 29, and you're going to, it's an electrically charged, woo, I'm fighting a fire, this is awesome, right? To being 45 and being in a house with a basement fire and the floor is spongy, you can't see your hand in front of your face, it's really hot, your earlobes are essentially burning off, your equipment's starting to fail, and I've got a lot more to lose here, and so you really have the intensity of not wanting to die, right? Or realizing that you may die, and then you're leaving this.
You got more to live for,
right? It changes sort of scope so that your fear changes the scope, I guess, of
Yeah, I think you jump in at 27 and you're the you want to be on the front page of the Sun.
You're 10 feet tall and you're bulletproof, right?
And then all of a sudden life is like, whoa.
Right. Well, it's just like traveling. If you travel to a place on your own, it's a different experience than if you travel with your wife and kids, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you become...
Be more prone to go to, shadier areas of the world on your own in search of, let's say, fish, right? Than if...
then you bring in the family.
Right.
You're more
well,
calculated.
you're just a little more exposed.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's a little... It's harder to, to really be there without that sort of awareness that something can go wrong.
So talk about, some mental health stuff that goes on in the fire hall. And I mean, it can't, I get the rush, the adrenaline. At one point,
Right.
we're human.
Right.
And
And I think that's mental health is there's obviously stigmas, and thank goodness those stigmas are changing, right? In terms of people aren't equipped, I think, naturally, right, to see dead people a lot or people dying, right? And when you're firefighting, or in any of that sort of, you see things that most people don't see,
yeah,
right? And so you haven't developed the mechanisms in which to handle those things, because it's not something that
do you develop them, or is that an aid through help?
Absolutely. And I think if you break your leg, you go see the doctor. If something's wrong mentally, you go see the doctor. And in this case, they did wonderful things for me.
Talk about that.
Yeah, no, I will. It's for me, I and I don't know if it's my exposure with hunting and the outdoors and animal husbandry and stuff like that. And I'm not trying to equate people to, dead animals, but gore, right? Guts,
yeah,
blood, are between the two are very similar, right? And so I personally, and everybody's different. This is the other interesting thing with mental health. It may affect me differently than certainly it will affect anybody else. But in my own, if I can only speak of my own experience, the blood and the guts, the gore of tragic accidents, or it didn't affect me that much. What really affected me was the emotional component, right? Where you get to somebody's house and mom and dad had a fight, and the kids wake up in the morning to go to see where dad is because he wasn't sleeping, in the matrimonial sort of bed, and they find him downstairs hanging, right? To walk into that is, it's amazing how people can imagine how that would make you feel sort of sick, but it really takes something. For me anyway, it took something and really affected me. And over time, it accumulates, right? So, people dying, drowning, right? People having heart attacks at Thanksgiving dinner and amongst the family. A daughter, diabetes, dies downstairs while mom's, there's a whole bunch of different scenarios. And those aren't specific scenarios, but I'm just sort of painting the picture that after a while it sort of accumulates. The interesting thing that I learned is your head sort of validates things, but your heart is always true. And after a while, your heart goes, okay, I'm not a part of this BS my head's giving you, and I'm shutting you down. And it's sort of like being in the frog in the pot in the boiling water, right? He doesn't know it's boiling until, right? In my own personal experience, I thought I was handling the stress great, no problem. If people physically act like, if they asked me, "Are you stressed out?" I'd be like, "No, I got a great life, wonderful wife and kids. I have no financial stress. I'm able to pay all my bills. Didn't feel like I was stressed at all, honestly." And I can remember driving back from the fire hall after a night shift. It was Saturday morning, and my phone rang in the truck beside me, and I couldn't physically answer the phone. My body wouldn't. My head's like, you got to answer the phone. My body would not follow that order. It just, she gone, right? And it was sort of weird. It was like an out of body experience. You're looking above yourself, looking at yourself, going,
Enter.
this fractional it sort of happened. Your body's going, oh, you should be able to do this. Like your mind's, you should be able to do this, but you can't. You can't physically do it. This is wild. I got home. I said to my wife, I said, something's wrong. I went into my bedroom, turned off the lights, and I was crying. I was yelling. I didn't know what was going on. Of course, my wife is freaked out, and I said, "Listen, she's like, I'm like, I don't. If she, I couldn't function, and not being able to function also added to the stress, right? And you have this out of body experience going. I don't know what's going on. I'm sort of aware that something's like full blown, like
the situation is perpetuating.
I didn't know it all of a sudden happened. And when you physically can't do things, and there's that fracture between your head and your body, it was the weirdest. Anyway, so I talked to through one of the programs. I was able to talk to a counselor. She was in Montreal, a beautiful woman. I can't remember her name. And I talked to her for 2.5 hours that night. And we just talked. And she said, listen, you got to go see your doctor. Monday morning, I went in Monday morning and they booked me off, and I was able to go to a psychologist here in Calgary, and did a lot of intensive work to sort of get back. And through it all, I was very open with my family. Of course, the kids were scared, but I was explaining to them what I was going through and what happens, and that became a great gift, right? Another great thing that happened was a friend of mine who had gone through the same thing. He called and he said, Quinn, I've heard something's going on. And he went through the same thing. He goes, I'll talk to you in a sec, but I really want to talk to your wife. And he talked to Ali for an hour and a half, which was what a godsend, to help her sort of realize what was going on, and capacity and all that kind of stuff. Gave her a really good perspective. And it was tough, but through therapy, there's different things about, like, lack of sleep is a big factor. It is for me. And I was unable to sort of find resolution through those progression of different things that I was experiencing, right? I didn't fully find resolution, emotional resolution, and have it come to an end, right? And that's what a lot of REM sleep allows you to do, right? And because of the lack of shift work, I hadn't slept well for a long, long time. And it just, once the well's dry, it's dry. You have no more water to give. And so some of the therapy I did was to recreate some of that REM sleep. And there's a physical manifestation of emotional pain. And once I was able to find resolution to work all that stuff through, I was able to, there's no other way except through, right? And it's tough. I remember sitting down in the machine. It's a bilateral stimulation in your hands, and you watch an LED screen like a Cylon. I don't know if you remember Battlestar Galactica, right? You go back and forth, and the psychologist would ask you a question. And initially you think, this is crazy. Yeah. How does this work, right? And he asks you a question. He said, just whatever comes out, comes out. I turned in to the Incredible Hulk the first time. For 2 hours, I was doing isometric, like, bouncing off this chair 10 or 12 inches high, yelling and screaming, crying, working through all this stuff out. Afterwards, I'm like, oh, man, I feel like
like new.
Well, you don't realize, it's like the frog in the pot. You're like, the headaches become sort of normal, right?
Yeah.
That anxiety, that stress you feel in your back becomes alleviated, and you're like, whoa, is this like the first time I got 8 hours of sleep? I was like, oh, that's what sleep feels like. Like it's profound. Anyway, so through all of that, and I don't like to use the word PTSD because there's so many other people out there that have it far worse than I had it. I had it pretty bad, but I everybody's ability.
But just add that, because I think it's important that you realize and we all realize that it's like that your trauma isn't greater or less than compared to someone else who has. So I know what you're saying. I don't want to take the language and
wear
it as a badge of what know some people have gone through.
Mm-hmm.
But some people might go through half of what you went through and still feel the same unresolved, the same anxiety and stress. And it's like, it's your story. Yeah. Like it's okay to say that's what you went through in the PTSD type sense. And
like symptomatically, I couldn't handle anything high speed, any fast movement, right? You go into that fight or flight. I couldn't handle crowds. I certainly couldn't make a decision. If my wife said, Quinn, would you like broccoli or shoelaces for dinner? I couldn't.
Sometimes they're the same thing.
Yeah, I couldn't. I remember driving. This is all ongoing through the therapy, and I was down. I went down to look where the eagles were, down towards the crow's nest and the whalebacks there, and was watching the eagles, and then I had this. Something triggered me. Could have been a sound or a car moving fast, or I broke out I was sweating, and I don't sweat much. I was sweating gallons, right? Just a full-blown panic attack. And I couldn't drive home. I couldn't, it was my Land Cruiser. I couldn't function. I had to, and then I'm trying to do all these things to normalize so that I could get home. I couldn't do it. Eventually, 4 or 5 hours later, I was able to sort of limp home. But I spent a lot of time down in the basement with a dog on my chest. Just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's people say, well, come on, toughen up, get over it. You can go to the mall. You can go to Safeway to pick up, and you can't.
That's their lens.
I know, but you can't do it. Mm-hmm. And that's what's so. I'm highly effective. And my wife, used to this highly effective guy that was all this, I couldn't do it. And like, I'll go back to my buddy that talked to Ali and helped her understand. He went through a similar thing, and they ended up getting divorced over it because his wife couldn't comprehend. Okay, it's been 5 months now. Yeah. We want to have 2 people over for dinner. How come you can't do that? And you can't necessarily put it into words. It transcends word. You just can't. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so through therapy and all that kind of stuff, I know what my triggers are. I've developed, mechanisms in which to combat it. And the analogy would be sort of, I don't know how easy it is to fall asleep behind the wheel.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? People don't realize how easy it is maybe to fall asleep behind the wheel until you've actually done it, right? It just takes a second where you kind of go, I'm just going to rest my eyes, right? I'm just going to rest my eyes, and you're in the ditch, right? Yeah. What it's having gone through that, you have not a hyper awareness because you don't want to be, but you do have to have. It's allowed me to have a good awareness when I'm becoming depleted, and when the my mechanisms for dealing with it aren't effective anymore, and I'm able to I can bow out, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And how important things like fishing People don't understand.
But that's
For me, you know what I mean?
yeah, and that's the power of all this stuff is that you know you're the first guy to take a trip in the summer because like do you need it at this point? Well, yes. Do you
I
know
think,
like
I think it's really important to come from a place of honesty, right? If you have to be intellectually honest with yourself too, right? And good friends are able to help you sort of steer that, right? But I like when you had your eye, right, trauma, that it deeply affects you, right?
It's still
right, and so it's really it's interesting when you work through it, right? It develops a ton of confidence and self-esteem, right? And it inhabits your toolbox, so to speak, right? Of all these more nuanced, more complex tools in which to deal with stuff, right? But it's still there. It's still there, and I think a lot of people don't realize that they have stuff that's still there all the time.
They mask it, or
the head validates.
Yeah.
The heart's always true.
Yeah.
Right, and you can't let that. The head can be a real bitch. You know what I mean? In terms of getting you to do things are okay.
To yourself,
yeah, all the time.
Convince yourself.
All the time.
All the time.
All the time. But the heart knows.
Yeah.
And I don't make that analogy loosely or in a Hallmark type way. The heart, it's a real thing. Like having experienced it, it's a real thing, right? The heart just goes.
Yeah,
anyway.
and it takes over.
Yep.
If you're,
so okay, it's like the head's been impeached. I'm now, I am now the heart. I am now taking over.
I'm in control.
I'm in control.
Shut you down.
I'm going to shut you down. And it's amazing biologically, right? That we have these, this system.
Mechanisms that function together. Yeah. So let's roll into guiding, and it's like you've been on the river. You're probably one of the guides out there on the bow that's still guiding, who's been there in the early 90s. There's, I guess, to say it respectfully, the sustainability of guides is probably 2 years.
Yeah.
In my opinion,
Right.
A lot of guys get into guiding for the wrong reasons, and they're just not sustainable. What's it, 30-ish, something close.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously if you've surpassed that 2-year platform 28 years ago, there's something that you're doing right. And just kind of walk me through that, and then what the river and guiding and stuff brings to you in your soul, and helping you through this.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that the sustainability with regard, if we're going to reference outside of my own experience, the sustainability guides. Ultimately, I'm here to tell you, as a guide, you don't make much money. It might seem like you do for that 3 months or whatever, right? But ultimately speaking, in today's real world, right, it's more of a passion play. I know lots of guides, and some of them are great friends of mine. We'll take, I won't use his name, but there's a guide in Fernie that's a little older than me, and he legitimately does 100 days a year, right? He still has.
Which is astounding.
Which is astounding, yeah. And it's a real 100. It's a real 100 days.
Yeah.
Again, we're sort of we got bookends of seasons here in Canada that we don't have. Like it is different than if you were further south. 100 days is a full schedule.
And then some.
In Fernie, right?
Yeah.
He still has to find work in the winter and the spring in order to, have a house and a car and pay for stuff and right. So I think some of that sustainability with regards to new guides, they might not necessarily go in with their eyes wide open and realize, okay, it's been 2 years, right? I'm guiding as much as I can, and if I were to take that take that income across the board after paying for taxes and all my crap that I, fun stuff that you buy, you're living on like what you can't do it. Yeah. Right. Unless you've got a partner that makes some money or whatever. Right. So, to live and die on 3 months or 3.5 months, or I'm going to guide here for trout in the summertime, and then do something in the fall. I got a guide, steelhead, let's say, and then in the wintertime maybe go down to Argentina or something and guide down there. It's great, but it takes a toll, right? And if you find yourself in a relationship, well, it's tough. So I think the other portion of people, I think that don't get into or they can't maintain the guide stuff for longer than 2 or 3 years, is that it's we'll go back to what's hard work. It's when you're physically doing something that's hard that you don't like, right? If you don't like guiding, like if you're into guiding for the wrong reasons, to be able to tell other people that you're quote unquote an expert,
you're
right?
You're in it to make money, which you just talked about. You're in it now to say, dude, I'm a guide bro. I got the t-shirt.
Right. That's not sustainable, and it's not nourishing. It's not, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think at the end of the day, you have to be intellectually honest, or at least know yourself well enough. And so if people, they try to do the guiding thing and realize it doesn't work, great. Do you know what I mean? They've learned something.
Yeah.
Right. I don't fault people for trying anything. I mean, that's great. It's wonderful. But if you're thinking about being a guide, it'd be wonderful to be your office, to be whatever watershed you're going to work in, to be able to fish all the time. You hear that a lot, right? I get to fish all the time.
Fish.
You don't. Yeah. Like, how often did you go fishing last spring?
Well, just saying before we
were just talking. Yeah, I was like, wow, yeah,
I got fish.
Yeah, I went fun fishing 3 times last year. Yeah. Right. The rest of the time, I like to be intimate with the rivershed. So, but a lot of people don't get that same sort of thing. It becomes a competition. I want to. It's different motivational factors that aren't sustainable. So, like I said, I think some guides are just. I mean, you know what I mean? Like they have to guide. It's like this photon beam that hits you right in the forehead, and you're going, you know what I mean? Following this to the detriment of all the other stuff. And so I understood, thankfully, younger, that I have to feed this beast, right? But I also have other goals. Yeah. And so in order to maintain these other goals, I got to figure out a different formula here to come up with the same product.
But
you know what I mean?
But I think the thing to talk about is the beast hasn't, like, you'd still, yes, you found a way to finance a proper life, you know, I guess you could say, without making light of it. But here you are, and the beast is still hungry. And
you got to feel, and it's weird how that works, right?
A really important word that you said back there was that to be sustainable, guiding or fly fishing in that aspect has to be nourishing to you. And like we see it so often as people come in and out of guiding, and it's not the fly fishing part that turns them away. We talk about it often. They just don't have that desire to love on people and to spend time with people and to get the energy from the river, the fishing, the people, and that whole entire mix is the beast that it's like, I have to keep going.
And that's the thing, that voyage of discovery, right? If you didn't know that about yourself going in, right? Some people figure out, and usually, like you say, 2 to 3 years, they go, okay, it's
not rich.
Well, it's not for me, right? And that's okay. It's more than okay. It's great that things like that happen. It's if you have to feed that beast, if you are a guy that loves to guide, right? That loves to be on the river all the time, I don't want to try to make this sound romantic, but if all those things that is being a guide aren't fulfilling you honestly, within, you know what I mean? It's not sustainable. If it is sustainable, you've got another problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you've got this thing where you're going, I gotta look at that new rod.
Yeah.
Right. Look at those reels. And you're always thinking, if I tried this with that and did that, you know what I mean? Like it's you got another problem, right? Right. Like I'd like anybody, I'd love to be fishing all the time, honestly.
Yeah.
And financially, it's difficult.
Which is why guiding helps feed that beast of
course. Yep.
Fishing.
Right.
Air quotes.
Right.
All the time.
Right.
A big misconception about guiding is that you get to fish all summer, and it's like, or we always, in teaching in guide school is like, I'm a good fisherman, I should be getting paid for this, and so I'm going to guide. And well,
no,
yeah,
no, it's there's, we can get into this if you want, like in terms of what is a good guide, what isn't a good guide, what kind of attributes you should have or shouldn't have. I mean, it's very subjective, but I have a pretty good, as you do, an overview of what you sort of need. But it's people go, it must be nice to be able to spend time on the river all the time. Guess what? It isn't always. It isn't always. You might be stuck in a boat with people that aren't meshing, right? It's hailing, right? Your
fish aren't eating.
The fish aren't eating. Your trailer's broke down, right? So you're going to spend another 2 hours once you get off the river doing that.
Walk through a day, like.
Yeah.
I mean, take 20 days and just kind of make a day out of,
right?
Because I know a lot of different things can happen. Yeah.
So if you were to take the average day of a fishing guide, it's there's a lot that happens behind the scenes, right? And your analogy of the marionettes, is awesome. But you're up early. If you haven't, some guys wash their boat the night before. I typically wash it in the morning. You're getting all the lunches together, all the drinks, all the ice, right? Then I'll go by the gas station, fill up, right? And then go to the meeting place. And I like to arrive to the meeting place, as do you, about 45 to an hour beforehand, because it sort of sets me up. It gives me some alone time, some Quinn time, do mental checklists in my head, talk to other guides, figure out what's been going on, and then you meet the clients, get introduced, right? Mitigate expectations, and just getting a general read, sort of explain the different sort of parameters of what they can expect during that day, and try to figure out what they want, and try to find the right stretch that works with their expectations. And you fish all day. That's great. Get off the river. And depending on the ability of the angler, it's between 8, 10, can be 12 hours later, right? Drive them back into town, drop them off, go home. In my case, I go through stuff that needs work. So it's
and like you mentioned, your trailer breaks down, your truck breaks down, your rods break.
All that redundancy sort of has to get built into your program, right? There's nothing more frustrating than having stuff break down, only to find that because your hours are spent on the river, most stores are closed, right? So in my garage, I got, when I had the Land Cruisers, I had, extra injectors, another turbo, right? Hoses, stuff that I could fix, fuses, all that kind of stuff. With regards to the trailer, I have 2 extra hubs, extra nets, 3 or 4 anchors, extra oars, right? Because I don't have, when you're,
and as you say this, I'm just thinking, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching,
yeah.
like,
because like it's not so much losing a day that scares me the most, from a personal financial, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's when someone's coming up from California, right? And I can't go pick them up because
you're letting them down.
Right. That's the biggest thing. So, and because we extra spare tires for the trailers, right? Got 2 at home, but it takes you a while to build all this stuff up. Right. Same with flies. I don't have time to go by the fly shop this morning.
Or
lead,
the
tippet,
the romantic idea of getting home from a day of guiding and tying up 2 dozen blah blah blah.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to do that, right? Because you didn't tie enough that spring or fall or whatever. Or
whatever.
you've got.
But that's I guess what I'm getting at is that's not like, oh yeah, I got done guiding today and I'm gonna go tie flies and post it on Instagram that I'm a hardworking guide tying flies at midnight. Like,
yeah, I hats off to people that are able to do that. I am so exhausted, especially if it's a trying day, vis-a-vis clients that are hard, or fishing
heat,
conditions were tough,
wind,
heat, or I'm whatever. In order to be professional, polite, and work at problem solving and putting people in the most advantageous position in which to
be successful.
It takes a lot out of you. And then, right, you get home, and then in my case, I have to spend quality time with my wife and my kids,
all the things that are
and my dogs,
yeah.
right? And then there's all the house chores to do, right? And people sort of might diminish that, but when you're in a time crunch, right, where you're away from the house for 14 to 16 hours, right? It's not like it's not my wife's fault that I'm,
yeah,
you know what I mean? So, or my kids' fault. They don't care that I'm tired. It's not their fault that I'm tired, right? So they're not, in my opinion, they shouldn't have to bear the brunt of the fact that I'm tired. So I give them everything that I can, right? Mm-hmm. And then we were talking about mental health. For me, one of my replenishing strategies is, it's really important to me, but I read every night. Mm-hmm. And so I have to, it's when everybody's shut down, right? Kids are in bed, dogs are asleep, they've been run. And then I go,
now it's Quinn time.
And I get 45 minutes to an hour reading, and then I fall asleep. Only
all those things that you've recognized since.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it's the romantic notion of a fishing guide. I mean, if you're doing it properly, I mean, some guys will skimp on washing their boats.
Or they don't have families or
whatever. Yeah, so that all works. But in
parents' basement or something.
Right. In my from my experience, it takes a lot. And I'm sort of glad, in a weird way, that I can't do it 200 years or 250 days a year. I think that would.
Because you probably would.
Right. And. But
just every year you're like,
yeah,
I'm going to taper back a bit.
Yeah. I've been saying that for a long time.
I don't have a trip until October.
Right. Yeah. It's, again, when we talk about feeding the beast, right? Sometimes you're like, oof, if I could guide 250 days a year, it would be, right? I'd have to come up with a whole other set of tools to be able to mitigate the rest of my life that is equally more important. But it's like living with an addict, I guess. You know what I mean?
It is.
I'm
It's a transfer of addiction. So, kind of drawing this all together here, I would simply ask you this question that I'm sure a lot of listeners are also wanting to ask is like, all that said and done, what the hell do you still guide?
Yeah, I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the being intimate with the water is a big one. Seeing it, the nuance change as they change throughout the day. If I go away from the river for even 3 or 4 days, you come back, you're like, ooh, I missed out. You know what I mean?
Panic attack.
Well, it's just like, ooh, I missed out. I don't know. So and so, that fish isn't there anymore. I wonder what happened.
Yeah.
Okay, oh, he's moved off. You know what I mean? Like look at him. He's sitting. That's a different life form. That's cool. You know what I mean? And like that sort of that
the intimacy.
Yeah, the intimacy there is, and then the people. So I thankfully have some great clients, absolutely fantastic clients that have for the most part become good friends, right? And I guess through longevity, I've had the ability to sort of wean things so that I mostly go out with people that I enjoy, right? For the most part, it's not always the case, right? And I think it's important to take out new people because that forces you into outside your comfort zone, and that's how you grow. That's why I love fishing behind certain people. Love it.
The challenge of it,
especially jet boats.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because it just forces me to work harder, and you find different things.
Move out of that complacency.
Yeah, right. And so I really enjoy. It's very cliche, but I really enjoy different people and different personalities, and have interesting conversations with all of them. And to really work on the efficacy and the simplicity of instruction to get them to do something, right? It's
because saying cast to the left isn't always casting to the left.
No, it's like like what this happened this spring was keep the fish under tension, and the girl said it is under tension and the rod's straight. There's a bunch of slack. No, you got to keep the fish under tension. And she's like, the fish is under tension. After we landed the fish, right? She thought, in her parlance, was that the fish was feeling tension because it was hooked.
Oh, yeah.
Emotional tension, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to actual tension from the rod. And so you kind of go, oh, yeah, well, of course. I get it.
30 years later, I'm learning
I'm a dum-dum,
yeah.
right? I shouldn't be using that word, right?
Yeah.
And so you get to learn different ways to communicate, and then different personalities respond to different things. So it's challenging. It's fun.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. And you meet great friends, right? You do meet the people that genuinely and with integrity are interested in you, and vice versa, which is that's great. Friendship's good, right?
Powerful. The river has a lot to offer us. Some people, just the mere act of fly fishing is changing their lives and helping them get out of addictions. Having known your story and stuff.
Well, the interesting thing is, and I think this is missing in a lot of today's instant gratification, right? Fly fishing's hard. So fishing's hard. And then we choose to fly fish, which is the hardest way in which to catch fish, right? And it requires, and I think it's really important that people sort of embrace this, is that when something is hard and it requires a great deal of study and practice in which to master, that whole process is extremely important in terms of driving confidence, self-esteem, meaning, right? That transcends the fishing, but actually can be applied to different aspects of everybody's lives, right? So when you engage in an activity, it doesn't have to be fly fishing, but when you engage in an activity that requires something more than just sort of taking the red pill or instant gratification, that process of learning, it can be, forging a knife. It can be learning how to shoot your bow. It can be training your dog. It could be learning a new accounting software. It doesn't matter, right? But with fly fishing, it's for me.
Well, it's one of the last, that we talked about the other day, the technology doesn't make fly fishing easier, and it can never. It can give us better gear to work with, but of all the things in this microwave world where everything's just 15 seconds, I got myself a dinner.
Right.
And it's powerful, just even like talking with kids about it. It's like, it's hard and it's challenging, and I crave that. The guiding on the bow is hard.
Yeah. It's no weenie roast, but no.
That's keeps me coming back.
Totally. It's just like people that steelhead, people that permit fish, right? Why is the permit so so highly valued in terms of, it propagates its own story now. But permit fishing, you can do everything right. Cast, lure, the whole fly, whatever, right? You can do everything right 95% of the time, and you're still not going to get it, right? Whereas with trout, a little different. If you do everything right, your percentage, your hit percentage, so to speak, or your shots on goal are a lot higher, right? It's that it's just like you really, really remember miserable hunts, let's say.
Yeah.
Right? The easy ones are quickly forgotten. The miserable ones where you had to dig deep and work hard and you were freezing cold.
Yeah.
And you hump that, whatever. Those are the ones that stick with you. Why? Because it reaches a deeper place.
It's the infamous quote that's so cliche, but it's not about the destination, it's the journey. And when that journey rewards you with the story, and it's like, oh yeah, and then we got the animal, but for an hour I just told you about the hunt, or I mean, some of our waterfowl hunts. It's
and today's microwave, to use your term, microwave culture. When you see on Instagram, you see all these people holding fish, and people lose sight of the journey and just want the destination, and that happens all the time, right? They show up, they're fully kitted out to look expert, right? And throughout the course of the day, they become very tug needy, right?
Yeah.
They need the tug. They need the fish. They want the result. Because they want the picture, right? To affirm they got whatever, takes, right? And when you meet the more evolved angler, right? These guys get off on looking at the ducklings, right? They get off on being turned down.
Yeah.
Right?
And they just
wasn't that cool?
So
that fish
cool.
coming, he followed that thing for 8 feet.
Yeah.
Right? He bumped it twice.
Yeah.
He kicked my ass. Right? And you're going, ooh, this guy gets it. It's awesome.
Like
yeah. Right? It's so as you become more evolved, it's like with steelhead anglers, they're trained to know, okay, well, I'm going to be swinging this fly. I'm going to swing this fly. We've gotten better at techniques and targeting steelhead, so you can run up your fish per day numbers, but they've grown up in a place to expect not catching anything. And when you're standing there, thigh deep in a beautiful northwestern BC river, casting for steelhead, and you're looking at this fantastic forest around us, the bears, the sounds, and all that kind of stuff, it brings nuance to the story. Whereas sometimes in trout fishing, people lose sight of that. Right, and they just want the cranker yellow, right?
Yeah.
And don't understand that even through a refusal or getting your butt kicked or through defeat, you're learning something, right?
It's not a given.
Yeah,
but it should be understanding fly fishing. Like those are the days you get better.
Of course.
When it all just happens, you're like,
no, like, wouldn't that be terrible?
Could have I used a different fly and it worked? It's like, but those days where you have to figure it out.
can you imagine being able to catch everything you want whenever you want? It's boring
fly
shit.
fish.
No, it's
Wouldn't do it.
stupid, right? You need the tough days to appreciate the good days, and you need the tough days to teach you so that you're more able to perform well on the good days.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the joy of it. Right. Like we've talked before, it'd be wonderful to get our clients to a place where they don't need us. That's always my goal. Right. You don't need to go out and figure shit out on your own.
Yeah.
Right. Learn, take that exploratory sort of those steps, embrace the, it's too easy to go on the internet and go, okay, where can I go fishing?
No,
we get questions all the time. Can you pin drop where I can go?
Tell me what flies. It's this time of the year.
Right.
And we could, but it's like, and it's not an arrogance thing. It's just like,
well, you don't want to deprive the people.
But why is that fun?
Right. You don't want to deprive the people of that joy of figuring shit out on your own.
Yeah, it is. That's
like when I go saltwater fishing, I love, hey, drop me off here.
Mm-hmm.
Come pick me up in 4 hours.
That was our 14 days in Oman.
No, like catching fish on your own.
It's so fun.
It's so much fun. So much fun. Having said that, I do appreciate a guy pulling me into tarpon, but it's you know what I mean? Yeah. I think it's important to sort of put yourself up, not in competition against other guides, but you put yourself up in competition against the elements.
Yeah.
Right? Where you go, it's going to be tough today. I'm going to try to, I'm competing against the river. I'm competing against the fish. I'm competing against my clients' expertise and levels and their open-mindedness or their closed-mindedness or their ability to assimilate, information or not or whatever. Right.
And all of this is calculated in your head. Hey, I'm Quinn. Let's go fishing today. And as you're calculating this, how well do they take instruction? Because I have to get you to catch a fish through my instruction. And how do you take my instruction and what language works for you? And we got tough conditions and I've got, and all while driving to the river, like, oh my goodness, where are you from? How's your day? What do you
it's amazing how fast you can suss somebody up.
Yeah. Like
within 5 minutes, I could tell you exactly what that guy's story is. The other neat thing is to get back to why, why we guide. I guess if I could make it an analogy, if I always played basketball on a court, so the ball's always the same, right? The court's the same dimensions. Even blindfolded, I would think after enough time spent on a court, you can turn around, you know where the basket is, right? It's amazing, and I'm sure you've experienced it. You're going down, you're flowing down the river, and you're going, "Ooh, this is good, Charlie."
Yeah.
The depths. This is good flow. Oh,
the whole
it's going to happen, right? And you're able to count down the fish eat, right? But it's amazing as humans if you're aware of it, how much information we assimilate, right? Wind, smell. Sight, colors, all that kind of stuff that sort of gets woven into our subconscious so that ooh, that's money.
3.
You know what I mean? Yeah,
2,
3.
1.
How did you do that? And being able to do that is awesome, right? Like you kind of go, and it's because it's time spent in the water, right? It's like, how do you know it's going to be a white streamer day today?
Or you take off and then quickly pull back in and you're like, I felt something different.
Yeah.
What did you feel?
Yeah. It's like speaking to it's like having this one-sided conversation. Or it's like if you were what are the psychics called? That talk to the dead. Those. What are they called?
Yeah, I know what
but you know what I mean? Like it's sort of like you're having this sort of moment where you're kind of going, you're driving in, you're going, oh yes. You're just turning the truck around, you're putting the boat to drop in, and you're going, oh, this looks so juicy.
Yeah, and you're just the smell.
It looks chewy out there.
You walk down and you're like, it's it.
Yeah.
This is all. Yeah. I mean, and sometimes on those days, to be fair, because we're not psychic.
That's it. Psychics.
They're they don't go the way we like. You get all these good feelings, and at the end of the day, you're like, that hurt. I had, which we learn quickly. We don't always share those quick feelings with the clients.
No, of course,
you never know. But
like like when you're fishing River Right, and even if the guy or the girl isn't a proficient caster, but they make that one and they present, and you're going, leave it. Here it goes. Right?
Or they pull out.
Yeah, and so like
and they pull up and the fish is chasing it out.
But it's those moments. To know that they pulled out too soon.
Yeah.
And how do you communicate that? Right? No, because every little seam's different.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And in order to learn about all those sort of nuances, it's just time on the water. And that's wonderful. The most wonderful thing about being a guide is that you are seeing that stuff day in and day out. See it when it works and when it doesn't. When it works, when it doesn't. When it works, when it doesn't. And you string together all those times such that, with confidence, you can go, ooh, yeah, uh-huh. And then you go, well, the fish wasn't there. And with a degree of confidence.
That's not just. Do
you know what I mean? Like that was the right presentation. You hit that seam perfectly, right? Everything's working. The bug's right, because I know the bug's right. And, that brown's just not in the mood today. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, he's not happy. That brown's not happy.
It is.
And whereas, like, I think new people go out and they go, I can't catch a fish to save my life, right? And they don't know why.
And I often tell people, like, I'm not better than you. I'm blessed to be able to do this as a job.
Mm-hmm.
And because it has a financial gain to my time on the water, I can spend time on the water.
Yeah.
And back to the start, it's like, it's not for everyone.
No, it's not for everyone. But I think how, like you and I will talk, that guy's really fishy.
Yeah.
He's really fishy. Some guys have,
it's like my least favorite word.
No, I know, but
I know what you're saying.
Like some guys are like, how does he, right? Yeah. They just have a nuance, like
je ne sais quoi.
Like Kevin Peterson.
Yeah.
Super fishy guy. Super fishy. Maybe he's more in tune.
Yeah.
With stuff on a different level than other people.
His frequencies are dialed in, and he doesn't have the interference of.
Right. So I think I what I'm saying is I don't think you can diminish, like when you say I'm not better than you. I get what you're saying, but some guides
dialed in.
Some guides have a predisposition to certain things that other people don't. It's just like I can't run 100 meters. You know what I mean?
You look at Connor McDavid on the ice,
right.
and it's like it's just
he's a different level.
Yeah,
different level. Like that hand speed and the ability to see the ice.
And it
is different than like.
Well, even people in the same league, and I always tell people like, well, he's 18, enters the NHL, best player in the NHL. Mm-hmm. Then you got Jaromir Jagr on the other end of the spectrum, who's leaving, but he has 20 some years of experience.
Right.
That doesn't make him better at this time. And I think the reason that you've been around so long, and guys like Kevin, is because you don't take for granted that. And it's like, I go back and I'm going to learn, but I'm guiding for the right reasons. I'm enjoying the people. I'm enjoying the intimacy with the watershed, and I'm not thinking to myself, well, there's another couple $100. Or how big's my tip going to be today? I'm going to, like that. Mm-hmm. Those people come and go. See them all the time.
They're getting
fed. Hey, new boat, new truck, like guide for a year and he's gone, or she's gone or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's, the
other thing that I think is really important and that people sort of gloss over is the physical requirements. And that's more prevalent to me now because I'm a little older, right? But it requires a great deal of physical ability to day in, day out do what we do, right? Mm-hmm. And in the off season, you have to keep that rolling, especially as you get older. There's lots of guides that are in the game, and they might not, because guys are famous for being fish heads, right?
Yeah.
So, they drink a lot of beer. They might have, they might smoke some weed. You know what I mean?
That's their lifestyle.
It's their lifestyle, right? And don't take care of themselves physically. When it gets to a certain point, and your shoulder breaks down, you're unable to do the job physically. If you want to prolong it, you have to take care of yourself, not unlike an athlete, right?
What it is,
because when you're rowing a boat
for 8 to
10 hours all day,
rowing
on very little sleep.
Yeah,
right. If you're doing it properly,
amongst many other things that are mentally strenuous,
right.
Stressing about the fish in the river, this. Well, what happens is the people that come on day 60 and 70 and 80 are getting less the experience than the people on the first few days. If the guide doesn't treat himself like,
well, and that speaks to I think your commitment to professionalism, right? Just because it's your day 60, it's their first day.
Yeah.
Right? Whether they, you know what I mean? It's like to go out on a guided trip is a lot of money, right? It's a lot of money to take. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't afford to do it.
Yeah.
I can't afford to. Hey Jack, let's go.
Do 2 or 3 trips. No,
I can't do it. So, it's I consciously bear down all the time, going. This is their first day. It might be my 45th day, right? It's their first day. I'm going to give them and that's why that speaks to the exhaustion at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And it's not fair, and I don't take that lightly. It's as I know you don't either. It's really, really important to maintain that intensity throughout the whole season.
100%.
And that's way more important than number of days guided. Like everyone walks around and uses this mantle, this badge of, I did
100 days on the
I did whatever. Doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
If you can maintain that intensity, good for you. But in forever long that I've been doing it, I know that the longest stretch that I've guided nonstop is 21 days. On the night of the 21st day, you could have scraped me off the pavement with a spatula. Do you know what I mean? I don't know how guys, and that's just so I know where my limits are. So I will schedule in a day off. I know Kevin's different. Like he needs he's better at mitigating his time off. So because he needs to fish too, right? And he needs a recharge day. So he knows that. And consequently, dollars to donuts, someone's posturing with their 100 days, and Kevin might do half that, right? But, Kevin knows more. You know what I mean? Like it's, and so it's the intensity and the focus in which you bring the job. It's not, a complacency and just going down the river in a pattern every day.
Yeah. Well, that is fantastic, and I think it's pretty cool to have.
Are we shutting it down now?
Yeah.
Are we?
Yeah, I know. We can sit here and talk forever. We're well over an hour and a half.
We should do part 2.
We could, if they want to hear part 2, because I think what's cool.
Because we can BS like this.
We do. We actually do. Yeah. And we're both still married, not to each other.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you opening up about some of the stress and the mental health issues. Because at the beginning of the conversation, you romanticized about this masculine job of firefighters and cowboys, but yet you're here and you're okay to be vulnerable, to share about something that's not maybe masculine.
Nothing comes from anything except honesty, right? And that's part of the stigma with mental health. Like you get a John Wayne archetype, toughen up. Right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people, because you can't see, it's not like a broken leg. And even with a broken leg, guys will say, oh, come on.
Yeah, get up.
It's
a long ways from your heart.
It's that stigma has to be thrown out. Everybody deals with things different. Like you've seen me, I'll break out in tears.
Yeah.
And I'm not ashamed of that. It's who I am. Mental health is a real thing. And you can't people, if you're feeling down, if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling unsure, if you don't know, there's nothing wrong with going and talking to a professional about it.
100%.
And what might seem like this insurmountable thing at the time, a professional can help you gain the tools in which to move through it. And I promise you, you're going to get stronger, even in entertaining that process of building up your abilities to deal with it, right? It's a very worthwhile. And the John Wayne thing, and like take the fire department, like they're all John Wayne types, right?
Yeah.
No one ever talked about mental health, and now I'm proud and happy to say that is a real thing. Guys know when to go, hey, I need some help, and there's strength in that vulnerability, and there's help in that vulnerability, and when you realize everybody has shit going on, everybody, as much as they might look like they have their stuff together, everybody has shit going on. We're all human, and the people that take an effort to get help are often rewarded with help, right?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds simple,
and
but
and it's more important than saying, "Hey, no, I got this under control."
yeah.
It's just like if you said, "Can you drive the stick shift?" Oh yeah, I got it. And he jumps in the car, can't drive a stick shift. Always, it's doing nobody any good. It's the same thing. It
just reminded me of watching a shuttle driver this summer get into a stick shift. That didn't end well.
Yeah, right. So, hey, are you handling your mental stuff good? No, yeah, I got it. It's the same thing. It's the same analogy. No, I need help. I'm happy to help you learn how to run that stick shift. Mm-hmm. Right? Or if you can't do it, that's cool. We'll find somebody else.
No,
you know what I mean?
teach
And we'll teach you. Right? No problem. No one looks down at people saying, and if they do, I would float a big raft of shit their way.
Yeah.
They look down at somebody for dealing with a mental issue that is certainly closed-minded and speaks more of that person perpetrating that lie.
It's that person who probably wants to reach out
right
for themselves. So again, thanks, Quinn. Mm-hmm. I appreciate you sharing with us, and it's a hot topic. It's a uncomfortable topic to talk about mental health, and ultimately it comes down to the three words, I need help. And if that resonates with you, if Quinn's story resonates with you, you can look him up at troutfarmer.com. But honestly, feel free, if you're in Calgary and you want an awesome day on the bow, definitely check out Quinn. And if you have a story similar to that, and fly fishing is a big part of your life and it has helped you walk through this, definitely reach out to me. I would love to open up space for you to tell your story here on the Fly Fishing Saves Lives podcast. Until then, I love you guys, and we'll chat soon.
Cheers.